Welcome to the Being Curious Show. I'm Brian Mariani, founder of No Shift Own.
And I'm Kelly Wagner, publisher of Edge Magazine. Our show is about curiously connecting teachers and seekers on a wide range of topics in a safe space. Few topics will be off limits, and we have some amazing guests to share with you.
Our intention is that our conversations will spark your own curiosity to create a life that lights you up and inspires you to be kind, thoughtful, open-minded to yourself and others.
We are on AM 950, Sundays at 2 p.m. and all podcast platforms. So, Brian, what are you curious about today?
Wow, here we go, Kelly. I'm curious. I'm excited. This is our first. Okay, so for everyone who's listening, whenever you're listening, this is our first taping in 2023.
Yeah.
So there's some new excitement in the air around that. And our guest today is extraordinary. We're gonna jump into that. Kelly, do you have anything to say to jump things off, or should we just rock and roll and go?
Oh, I already feel the room filling up. I have so many questions personally I want to ask our guests.
Are you starting to see any visions yet?
No, because I put a little bubble around so I wouldn't, because I was we have to focus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
And I've also asked the guides to the pictures, turn them into English so I can say it on air. That's
good.
New tech. I know.
Because a lot of people, when you start doing your hand waving and stuff, if you're just listening, it can get difficult. We want to make sure people understand.
I would think it'd be annoying. What is this chick doing? Okay. On a brighter note.
I love it. Okay, here we go. Welcome, everyone. Happy New Year 2023. Our guest today is Wendie Colter. She is a certified medical intuitive, master certified wellness coach. She's the founder and CEO of The Practical Path. She has a lot of other accreditations. She's a published author through Watkins Penguin Random House. Her book is called Essentials of Medical Intuition, A Visionary Path to Wellness. There's so many things I want to ask Wendie, but we are going to honor our tradition of really trying to expose the how and the experience of you getting to all of these accreditations, to being certified, to being a master in all these different fields, because there was an adventure before then. And so my question to you is, can you actually remember maybe the first experience or one of the first experiences you had where you can look back now and go, well, oh, that's why I became who I am today. Because we want to get to know you. We want our listeners to understand who you are. So if you could share that, that would be a lot of fun.
I'd be happy to. And thank you for having me on the first show of the year. That's pretty special.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places I could go with this. Like many intuitive people, I have memories of intuition from when I was very, very young. And, I was kind of lucky in that my parents didn't squash that.
What a blessing.
It really was. It was considered just part of a natural creative bent, you could say. And later in life, I became an energy healer and did that work a lot. Taking the leap from that to medical intuition wasn't a big leap, actually. What I noticed was, like many healers, when I was doing my healing work, I found that I could intuitively discern information. And that's a very common experience for healers. Many have that kind of experience. And what I noticed, though, was that I was discerning. I could see right into the body. I could see the organs, I could see the systems, I could see what was happening. And I was seeing in my mind's eye, and that had developed over time, just sort of using that particular intuitive skill. And what I saw was that sometimes people would heal from a healing. They'd be able to release whatever was blocking their healing ability, and sometimes people couldn't. And so I love your show called Being Curious, because I was incredibly curious. And that's what drove me. That drove my whole career. It still does. What could be the factors that would keep someone from healing and someone else from healing and someone else to heal? What was the missing piece? And as I developed this skill for medical intuition, which is a very specific questioning of the body in the biofield, very specific kind of process, I noticed that the information that I was able to gain from my client's body and biofield, not from them, but from their energy, was so precise and so detailed that it was valuable for them to put the pieces together so that they could heal. And that was a real turning point for me. That was a little around 20 years ago or so when I first sort of started all of this and started playing with the idea of what does this mean? You know, what is this particular skill all about anyway? Right?
Okay, so I want to back up just a little bit because, I mean, I'm all about medical intuitives, just like right there. Like that's what I do. That's who I roll with, right? I'm there. For any of our guests that are more in the mainstream mindset, probably like, and which is great, and this is why you're here. Talk to us about and unpack what is a medical medium, like what is a medical intuitive, because you said like I can see the body and I can see this and that, but bring it back to the difference between someone that would go to their doctor at X for X treatment versus coming to see someone like you that is really just using your intuition and your guides and really just channeling the energy and the information that you're receiving, and then digging deep and being curious, because that's what you are. You're curious with your patients.
Extremely. And I don't have patients, I have clients.
Clients, excuse me. Thank you.
But, well, the language around this is actually really important.
Very important.
And I'll tell you why. Yeah. Because medical intuitives actually are, believe it or not, I'll back up a little and say that some research was done around this. And it turns out, just as well as in my career, where I started working with doctors a long time ago, because their patients would come in and say, hey, I saw this medical intuitive and she suggested this and this, and she said this and this. What do you think? And they're like, wow, okay, I'm going to answer this a bunch of ways.
I know you are. Go for it. See, you're starting to see the pictures that I see all the time, but you're just trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. So your question was, backing up, what is medical intuition? Medical intuition, people practice it all different kinds of ways, for sure. It is certainly an intuitive skill, and we have many intuitive senses. We have the visual sense that I use, we have the feeling sense, the knowing sense, on and on and on. And people sort of are either taught or they naturally develop this. I teach this, and I teach healthcare providers, health and wellness providers, this skill, so they can use it with their patients in their practices. Because as I was coming up as a medical intuitive, and still now, when I work with doctors, they want to know what I see. And what I see are the connections between the body, the mind, and the energy, the spirit, you could say. And there's some missing pieces in there sometimes. Certainly in allopathic medicine, there are a lot of missing pieces. Allopathic medicine is incredibly important, valuable. It's life supporting.
Right.
And we have all of this energetic stuff that makes these connections between the body and the mind that Western medicine hasn't quite figured out yet. But medical intuitives and people from that intuitive perspective make those connections. That's what I teach, is how to see those connections. And that's what I taught myself how to do. And those kinds of connections between how we think, how we feel, what our spiritual perspective is or isn't, and our physical body, that is the crux, that's the point of medical intuition. Because there's absolutely connection there. So what is that connection, right?
Wendie, I just had this thought. Trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who is hearing the word medical intuition for the first time, medical intuitive. A lot of people, I would say most people, can relate to an X-ray at some point, whether you see it on TV or if you've actually experienced, going to the hospital or a dentist office.
I love where you're going with this.
A lot of us can relate to that.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, could you draw a picture from the medical intuitive side? So we understand. I go to get my teeth checked. I put that metal vest on. They take a picture, and I get to see, my teeth. And it's usually horrifying. It's like, wow, that's what that looks like. But you can actually see. They can point out. We'll look at this darker space. look at the shading here. That's representative of a potential cavity. Or look, there's a gold crown or a silver crown. It really exposes the reality of what's going on. So I'm wondering if you could paint that picture from the medical intuitive side. What does it look like? Is it a picture in your mind? I mean, you said earlier that you can like really look into the body, but I think if you can draw those parallels, it could be helpful for people who are hearing about this for the first time.
I understand completely. So medical intuitives view or see or discern in all these different ways. How I do it is it actually looks like kind of a full color MRI, you could say. It doesn't look like an X-ray to me, although many medical intuitives talk about that kind of black and white imagery. To me, it just looks like looking at an anatomy book, but in living color, and doesn't always have to be in color, but and sometimes the colors are not true to life, but they are representative. So I look at literally the anatomy and the physiology, well, literally energetically speaking, the anatomy and the physiology. And that is one of the skills that I teach in the program. Now, that's one half, I would say, of medical intuition. And in my world, my definition of this is you have to be able to look at the body if you're going to call yourself a medical intuitive. We obviously also want to look at the underlying causes, the root causes, and what's driving a health imbalance. But until I can take a look at your kidney, so to speak, or your liver, or whatever's going on, and have a conversation with it, and say, okay, Brian's liver, what's happening there? Why I'm seeing these sort of images. A lot of them are energetic in nature. They're not literal, but they mean something. So I want to ask, what does that mean? What is the specifics here? I want to give you that information so you can take it to your doctor and say, okay, what about this? And that to me is where medical intuition on the purely the healthcare, the physical healthcare side is incredibly valuable. I mean, it's the difference between someone feeling like they're not getting the care that they want or need from conventional medicine and hearing things and getting the information that they can take to healthcare providers to help them heal. And, the stories I could tell go on forever. And many medical intuitives have these kind of stories. It's like that connection was not being made by their doctors, their acupuncturists, their healthcare providers, and medical intuition has this much broader lens, you could say, to see a much broader swath that can get information that may not be obvious when you're looking through one lens of healthcare. The other part of it, I know I'm answering your question a big way, but the other part of it is life history. So not only am I looking at the anatomy and physiology, I'm also asking the client's energy and physical body, show me where this came from. Show me how this happened. How did this manifest? One of the tenets here is that the body holds on to physical, emotional, mental information. And that's actually scientifically backed up now, right? We have science around this. ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, shows that trauma in one's life can lead to very serious or even mild healthcare issues later in life. So what is that about, right? Let's find out about that. That's a big part of the process.
Well, and to your point, science is really exposing what has been intuitive for thousands of years or whatever your understanding of what's happening now is. And they're really, they're validating that something like stress that has been taught or assumed or learned as just something that comes and goes, and we don't really understand the impact, but we're understanding now, validated through science, that stress on an ongoing basis is worse than smoking a pack of cigarettes. I mean, they're coming out with these studies more and more. And that's what's really important about your work is you're not just seeing maybe a 2D image where you're going, okay, there's a broken bone there. That's fairly obvious. Well, when it comes to the condition of someone's liver, to your point, it's like, unless it's punctured, there's so much more that's involved with a liver that's not functioning well. There's maybe a life history there.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm really sensing from your work, is that it's such a deeper dive into a condition or anything like that. And that's really what we want to dive into in the next segment with you, Wendie, is really understanding your process as a professional, as someone who works in alignment, as someone who works in partnership with an allopathic system. How can people engage in a process where they're getting the most of both worlds? Right?
Wow, you couldn't have timed that one better. Okay, you guys. Being Curious with Callie and Brian, AM 950, here with Wendie Colter. This is going to be a good one. Well, it already is. Be back. Hey everybody, we're back. It's Callie and Brian. Wendie Colter. She is a medical intuitive practitioner, teacher, author. Wow, segment 1, I think we just started kind of just scraping and scrapping. We're going to dive deep on this one. So Wendie, something that when I have a intuitive chiropractor, so the minute I walk into her office, she can tell by how I'm walking, how I sit, how I'm talking, how I'm carrying my shoulder. Is like she does all of these different scans, and she used to ask me what's going on, and now I just lay on the table because she already knows. Tell me a little bit about your process when you're working with your clients. Excuse me, your clients,
It's okay.
your clients.
That's all right. Medical intuition is not a licensed field at this point, so we don't have patients.
You have clients.
At some point in the future, we hope to be
I
licensed.
sure hope so. So tell me about how people work with you and using your gifts and abilities.
So I'll give you a case study, which I think might really be helpful. In the book, I've listed, half a dozen case studies, so people really get a sense of what this is about. This one is, I think, a really good example. This was a client in her mid-40s. She had tendinitis is the word I'm looking for, in her wrist. And she'd had it for about a month, and it was not healing. And tendinitis, can be very persistent, especially in your wrist. You're using your arm all the time. But she felt that all of the interventions that she was trying weren't working. So she wanted me to look at it, So I took a look, and like I mentioned, what I see is sort of an MRI view. What I saw were the inflamed tendons. And I also saw underneath that tendon area in the wrist a healed bone scar, like an old fracture is what it looked like. And I saw around the wrist what looked like a cloud of grief and heavy emotion. And that was kind of where she was. And she wasn't aware of all of that, but that's what I saw.
So can I stop you for just a moment?
Yes.
So do you scan the body, and then so she came in for X?
She came in for something specific, but what I first do with a client, I'll do a whole scan.
Okay, so you do the whole scan.
Yeah.
And does the area that you're supposed to dial in with, does it glow? Does it whisper to you, go to the kidneys? Do you just have a knowing? How do you know, even though someone said I just stubbed my toe, how do you know to go, okay, but your left lung, there's something there? How does that work? I mean,
well, in the full body scan that I practice and that I teach, it's kind of a top to bottom look to see whatever the body wants me to look at.
Okay.
And that's interesting because it may or may not be what my client comes in for.
Right. That's
just because the body has its own, listen, our bodies, our cells have their own consciousness. Read any of Bruce Lipton's books and he'll corroborate. He'll talk about that. That's what medical intuitives have been seeing forever. It's like the body really wants to talk. It wants to speak. It wants to communicate. So that's what I do. I'm like, okay, body, show me. I'm going to go top to bottom, and I'll come up with a little laundry list, and then people say here, here, and here, and now off we go. Now, sometimes clients come in and they have something that they really want me to look at right off the bat, especially if they've been seeing me for a while, and that's perfectly fine. What I don't do is a lot of back and forth dialogue with clients because I don't need to know the history of it. I want the body and the energy to show me.
So
That's
she's
more
in,
valid to me.
oh, that's fantastic. So she's in here. She has an old injury. You have this cloud of grief around her. Keep going.
So what I did was then ask the body. This is a big QA between, my intuitive sense and the physical body of the client. And I said, okay, so show me where this comes from. And it showed me a little movie. And that's what the life history looks like to me. It's sort of like watching a little movie of their life. And she was about 20-something years old, early 20s, playing tennis with her boyfriend. She swings her racket, she trips and falls, and she broke that wrist. That was that fracture that I saw. Now, the next scene it showed me was her in the hospital with her boyfriend, getting her wrist, seen to in the ER, and him breaking up with her right there in the hospital.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that.
You could see it coming.
Yep.
So what happened
What a
there?
guy.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, really?
What happened there?
Oh, by the way,
was
honey.
that her body stored the physical trauma of the fracture and the emotional trauma of the breakup. Now, this is everything I'm relating to the client. Here's what I see. Here's what I see. And she stopped me. She said, oh, my goodness. And she had just broken up with her partner of over 10 years a month prior, which was just before the tendonitis began. Just before it began. So what happened for her was almost a replay of this earlier traumatic experience that included a lot of pain, right?
And did she confirm the video that you saw?
Yeah.
The tennis and the breakup and all that?
She remembered.
Wow.
Not people don't always remember that. Sometimes these memories are repressed or forgotten. But she actually went, oh, my goodness, yes. And that, turned the light bulb on for her. But she didn't even have to tell me that. If she wasn't in the room, I would have just completed the circle there because it was obvious. Now, the interesting thing about this particular case is that her wrist wasn't done telling me things and showing me things. It showed me another image of her at age 5. And I saw her in a dark closet surrounded by clothes. She had her arm, the same arm, held up right in front of her face. And there was a cane hitting her right there. And it looked like it was wielded by a woman. And it was really pretty intense visual. And she stopped me. Now, clients usually don't stop me. They let me talk. But she's like, wait a minute. I know what that is. And for her, what happened for her at that age is that her mother was mentally ill and used to beat her with her cane and lock her in a closet. Now, what her body was showing us was a trauma point here in her body that held emotional and physical and really spiritual trauma that had carried forward. Now, the next thing I do is I need to ask the body, what does it want and need to heal? Because, that's what we all want to do. We want to heal.
Right.
And her body showed me a few things. First of all, it showed me that there were some other things going on that were contributing to this pain. And one was, or affected by it, one was the fact that she was not sleeping well. She was, her gut health was really impacted by this. And there were a few other things going on physically as well as emotionally that were part of the picture. So that's all of those connections being made. That was the end of the session. She took that information. She called me 2 days later and she told me the wrist pain was gone. It was just like it disappeared. But most importantly, she said that session helped me emotionally process the current trauma of the breakup that she was going through because she had really kind of been stifling it. So there's all of these levels that this work kind of affects and hits on that are valuable to clients, and you can really kind of see the big picture.
So give us an example of working with a client and the body doesn't want to, oh gosh, I'm trying to choose my words, doesn't want to be healed or doesn't want to heal because there is other factors that are, where I'm going with this, but I'm not saying the words right.
I'll address it.
Thank you.
It's a tricky question to ask because the fact is that physical bodies want to heal. It's cellular. Our bodies want to heal. What can happen is that the healing process can be blocked or stifled or sidelined or whatever word you want to use, either energetically, physically, emotionally. There's always something. People ask me, is there always an emotional, mental, spiritual connection, or can you just stub your toe? It's like there's always a connection. I have never, in 20-something years of doing this work, never not seen that combined connection for any physical issue. So healing itself can be stopped by a number of things, a number of factors, I should say. And so that's why, Kelly, you asked the right question, because why medical intuition, Well, because we see things on this broader level that ties the pieces together. That's the goal.
Well, it's interesting on your website, because I'm like, again, you have me hooked. I'm a complete. I just want to get on your calendar, but I love on your website. You're like, it saves time, it's cost effective, it supports compliance, and provides holistic view. To me, I'm like, check.
Well, my website is also geared to the students that come to the program, and those are wellness professionals from every area of healthcare, from MDs to health coaches, and it's kind of an unfair spectrum here, because you could say it the other way around. But
I think it's a beautiful spectrum, right?
Yeah,
but even the phlebotomist, I would love the phlebotomist that draws my blood to come in and be able to go, bam, rather than poke. I'll try this. I would love that. I mean, that's. I'm sorry, tangent. I don't like needles.
You know what? We should get phlebotomists into the program and say, okay, show us where the veins are,
right?
And corroborate it.
Oh, that one's a rolly one, or that one's not going to do that, or that one's collapsed. But I mean, even if someone that's an anesthesiologist would be perfect for this, because I mean, there's such a beautiful. Okay, keep going.
What you're saying, Kelly, is really, the flag I wave. And that is, there's so much value here in so many ways, from what you might think is inconsequential, like a phlebotomist, which isn't, because boy, they can have trouble finding that vein, to, infectious disease or whatever, major issues. It all fits. And the skill set of medical intuition doesn't have any limitations on it in that regard.
OBGYNs delivering babies. Could you imagine?
Yeah. I have OBGYNs in my program. I have technicians and medical technicians in my program. I have people from across the board. And it's exciting, right? What's most exciting to me is, how are they going to use it? How do they use it in their practice? And then we share stories, and it's just so exciting.
Could you imagine, as you're, 40 weeks, go into the hospital, and you have a medical intuitive practitioner as your OB going to deliver your baby that can work with you and your body, and then work with the baby's body, and then you bring in all the teams. I mean, that would be so much fun.
Kelly, it would be, and you guys, this is paradigm shifting stuff. When you think about the possibilities of medical intuition, what it can do, how it can support any healthcare environment. It kind of, when I wrote my book, I was like, all right, I started to interview doctors to say, well, what do you know? And doctors who are open to this. And believe it or not, there are a lot of medical doctors who are open to this.
They just kind of quiet about it still, but that's
very
okay.
Quiet about it.
We got them.
Not so much anymore, thank goodness, because of functional medicine, integrative medicine, the idea that the body and the mind are connected, there's an idea. But yes, it's new to medicine. That whole concept is new, and how to integrate that. One of the things I'm really quite proud of in my career is that I am an educational contributor to the Academy for Integrative Health and Medicine. Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine, AIHM. And I've also taught at Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine. And these very important places that are pushing the envelope in conventional healthcare and mainstream healthcare by integrating things like this, right? Alternative, so to speak, biofield practices. And medical intuition, to me, is not a biofield practice. It's a foundational skill set that applies to all of it. So that's kind of where I come from with it.
You have me going in so many different directions, and it's amazing. Well, for example, I had a rash for 2 years, and you go in there and they give you steroids and they give you creams and they do this. And that's where I started. I was like, no, this isn't right. And I changed my diet and I changed my water and And then I dealt with some of the mind, body, spirit issues, and it started to go away. And it was in certain bands of my body. So it wasn't, I mean, my body was like, hello.
Yeah.
And it was unpacking it. It was unpacking it in a beautiful way. Okay, we are already wrapping up segment 2. We're going to go into segment 3, and we're going to talk about your book. We're going to talk about your courses. So we have people curious, but we want them to learn a little bit and take something away and to engage with you. And I'm so excited to share you with this, with our listeners and with our community. This is Wendie Colter. Her website is thepracticalpath.com. It is Kelly and Brian and Kelly. We're very, very curious today. Oh, I know you guys are like, "Oop, this is fantastic." Okay, you guys, wrapping up segment 2, coming into segment 3, and we'll see ya.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Wendie Colter. We're having a lot of curiosity. We're also having fun. We're enjoying each other's energy. Who knows what Wendie... I don't know, Wendie, can you see through Zoom? Can you see all my problems and Kelly's problems?
Well, it is a remote skill. So the answer there is yes, except
you
that
can.
I'm not looking right now because that would be overstepping.
We have privacy issues at stake, everybody. We're going to...
No. That's, by the way, what you're talking about there is ethics, which is
totally.
something that I am I have a lot of thought about that. And I teach ethics in my program, which I feel is not really taught well enough in biofield practices. And I'm also, I'll put this in here now if you want to talk about it. If you don't, it's okay. Yeah. I'm the president of the National Organization for Medical Intuition. And we just launched. And that organization was put together by myself and a group of, very experienced medical intuitives who also felt that there wasn't enough ethics and standards of practice around the field. So we're working on that.
So, Wendie, this is perfect. The universe, the intuitive guides. I have 2 questions. Yes. And you are the person on planet Earth right now, I feel, to answer them.
Ooh, so this is going to be a good one.
No pressure.
Get ready, everybody.
One's going to be a little bit silly, but I think it's honestly on everyone's mind. And the other one will be a lot more serious. So the silly question that I think it certainly popped into my brain, so I'm kind of assuming it would pop in others. Have you ever come across someone who wanted to test you and just come in
all the time,
cold, no relationship, and be like, okay, what's going on? And they in their head know, okay, they don't have an appendix or they broke something. Is that like something that is totally out of bounds, or is it something that's kind of fun, or like just kind of go into that a little bit?
Well, it's funny that you asked that question because you could say that I'm, tested every time. I don't do a health intake. If it's a new client, I've never looked at their energy before. I don't need their history. Please don't tell me. Yeah. I don't want to be biased by anything. And medical intuition is a lack of bias. So I want to keep that energy clear. I'm just going to tell you what I see. Sure. I work. There are plenty of skeptical people who make an appointment with me, and it doesn't matter. I'm going to do my process the same way every time. So let me talk about testing here for a moment.
Yeah.
Because this is the perfect segue. And that is, as I teach this work, I noticed that my students were getting, very uniform responses. And when I looked into the scientific literature on medical intuition, believe it or not, there is some scientific literature there going back to the 70s. But there's not enough of it, and most of it's inconclusive, right? So intriguing, curious, you get curious about it. And the doctors and the scientists are like, well, if you could really hone this process, it could really change things. But there hasn't been a lot of conclusive evidence. So what I did a few years ago is I got the support of some colleagues of mine at University of California, San Diego, and I said, let's do a study. My students are hitting their marks, and the feedback we're receiving is, through the roof. People are saying, this is accurate, this is accurate, this is accurate. Let's test it. So we put together a little exploratory study just to see, and it wasn't so little. We had 67 people from the community, and some of them were patients at UCSD Medical, come to have a session with our graduates. We had 5 graduates in this study, and what we came out with was, first of all, we wanted them to do just that process, just that cold read, you could say. How accurate were they in these various areas? And we had 94% accuracy.
Nice.
In the location and evaluation of the primary health issue. 94% is kind of impressive. We had, believe it or not, we had 100% accuracy in the secondary health issue, which was really interesting to see too. And that didn't surprise me given the scan that we do. In the specific issue, we had, in terms of life history, we had a 98% accuracy rate in the description of the life experience and the probable or possible connection to the health issue. That was in the 90s, 93 as well. So we had all of these phenomenal results from this that were just kind of blowing us away. Now, the statistic that all the doctors who look at this study go, oh my goodness, is we don't ask them a health intake. So we ask them afterwards, and it was an anonymous survey afterwards they filled out. We asked, if you have a known diagnosis from your own healthcare provider, how consistent was the medical intuitive with that particular diagnosis? 94% consistency there. And that number had not been seen before, in any of the literature. So we were over the moon, right? That study was written up and published in the Journal of Integrative and Complementary Medicine, which is a peer-reviewed medical journal. And that is the first research in over 20 years on the efficacy of medical intuition. So, I mean, that's a little bit of a milestone there.
A little.
If I wasn't on the air, I'd be clapping.
I am on the air and clapping.
We need more. We need
more.
Yeah.
Like the invitation for anyone hearing this is take that information, take that call to action to just expose this on such a greater scale. Okay, so this leads to my next question.
Is this the silly one or the serious one?
That the first one was definitely the silly one. This is
I didn't think it was silly. I thought it was great. Okay, sorry.
No, it led somewhere awesome, and that was great, Wendie.
Okay.
But this is really because you're at the cutting edge of not only your profession but healthcare in general. I'm wondering if, in your vision for the future, you think it could be possible for a medical intuitive to be hooked up to some evolution of an MR, like some kind of system that could actually either draw or 3D develop what you're seeing in your mind. Does that make sense?
Wow, I love that idea.
She's like, sign me up.
Like in your experience of, where you think science is going and what you know about your profession, do you think that's possible?
Well, sure. And why not? I think anything's possible at this point in history. There's so much new technology. We're really kind of at this wonderful leap ahead point. I'm not sure how. Now you're getting me thinking about what the implications of that could be or the uses of that. That's really a pretty interesting thought. I don't really know how to answer that, Brian, because it's a great. Medical intuitives don't always see visually. Let me just put that out. Yeah. Some are clairsentient; they feel it, or they get cognizant information, or they hear it, and so that might not quite be it. I will tell you, though, you're reminding me of a study that was done. I want to say, I can't remember when. It was a while ago, where they had intuitive people scanning the biofield for pain. And that's actually fairly common. And this was about the skeletal system. And they did a study and they found a very high, it was only 2 intuitives and, I think 15 patients or something that had spinal issues. And the intuitives were able to pinpoint which part of the spine was having the problem, like the herniated disc or whatever it was. And that was a drawing thing. They actually drew it. And that's kind of almost a remote viewing skill. If you know about remote viewing,
Yep.
it shares a commonality there. My feeling is that medical intuition is can be much more specific and
Correct.
visually anyway. But
well, and that's that's actually the foundation I started at. I was thinking, well, there are intuitives and psychics who, work with the FBI and things of that nature, where they do see an image, and then there's a professional person who's able to listen and draw. And so my thinking is, can that be evolved? Can we actually can we have a sensory capturing technology that would take the human interpretation out and really be,
it's interesting.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say about this, what a great question, is that sometimes what we see is not literal. Sometimes it's representational. And so that's actually very common for intuitives. So the job there of the intuitive is to say, what does this mean? Mm-hmm. So, if your kidney looks like a little dried up prune, you wouldn't be functional. That's literally what it was, right? You'd be missing a kidney function. So if I see that might mean a whole lot of things. It might mean you're dehydrated, but let me back up and say there's a little bit of a caveat in that as well. Anytime, this is my perspective, anytime we put a meaning onto something without actually dialoguing with the body to find out what that meaning actually is, then we are using a bias. And this is actually what I see out there in the world of medical intuition, is people kind of layering on, well, if it's this, it must mean that. If it's this, it must mean that. And that is something that I do not ascribe to. In fact, I think it's as limiting as any healthcare profession looking through a specific lens. Your first chakra may not be red. It might be purple. Well, what does that mean, right? So it doesn't have to be red, So we want to blow those biases out of the water no matter what. And I'm going a little further than your question, but it kind of speaks to it in a way. It's about the meaning of something, not just the visual of something. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a lot of ways that people can connect with you. The first one is your book, Essentials of Medical Intuition, A Visionary Path of Wellness. And I take it we can get that anywhere.
Yes. Okay. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, it should be everywhere. Beautiful.
You also have a healing workshop coming up. Tell us about that.
Well, the main program that I teach is for wellness professionals, and it's a 2-level program. It's about a year long in 2 sections. And this is for people who are, you don't have to be licensed. You can be, a certified something. But if you go on the website, there's information on who that program is open to. However, I also have a workshop called Medical Intuition for Healing and Self-Care, and that is open to everyone. And I encourage people who want to make that mind-body connection, learn how to use these intuitive tools that medical intuitives use to connect with your body, have a talk with your own liver, right? Find out what your body
Hello,
wants
friend.
you to
I
know.
love you. I'm sorry about the college days.
Exactly.
What a sweet letter to your liver,
I
Kelly.
love you.
Wow.
And my heart. Oh no, you gotta talk to everybody. You gotta talk. Yeah. Sorry.
I write letters every day to myself.
That's so nice. I love that. And also not just our physical body, although that's the gist, that's one of the main gists of it, but also how we manage our energy, right? How do we deal with this energetic biofield that we all have? How do we keep our energy balanced? And I'll just say that I actually created this program, this workshop, for the nurses who came to me and said, I really want to do your main program, but I don't have time right now. Do you have anything quick?
Yeah.
I'm like, yes. And so I created this for them. And a lot of those exercises are in the book, and in the Medical Intuition for Healing workshop, we go much deeper. And we're working on a self-study program right now that anyone can take anytime.
So, Wendie, we are wrapping up, and this has been enlightening and fun and engaging. We want people to connect with you, absolutely. But what would your insight be? What would you like to leave people with based on our conversation today? What would your invitation to them be?
My invitation would be listen to your body And for most people, that means learning some sort of meditative kind of practice, because you kind of have to calm the mind down a little bit. And not, go into fear or concern. And that's where everybody goes when there's a health issue, of course. But we want to learn how to sort of a few deep breaths, connect inward, let your intuition start to develop naturally, because we all have it. It's not a mystery. It's not only some have it. We all have it. And we can connect to it when we kind of just calm down, ground, breathe, find a meditation practice that you like, and start asking questions of your body. That's the thing people forget. Start asking questions and be present for the answer.
That is beautiful. You guys, just go to her website and check it out, thepracticalpath.com. Also, if you sign up for her newsletter, you can start to get a free ebook of her blogs, and I would assume a lot of the information that we tapped in today. Hey, it's Kelly and Brian being curious. Thank you.